Here is the electronics basically finished. As you can see, on here is my JST power rail, and all the JST connectors just go into that power adapter. Takes the 12 volts, so it goes to the fan, goes up to the fan on the hot end, and any other connections I wish to make. It's tapped off from the input here, so there's always power that's going through there. There's the fan. It's raised on a nylon standoff, so it blows across the polyfuses, across the MOSFETs, so it's supposed to get hot. Here's my cabling. Now, the cabling would sit up naturally by itself higher, so I've just made up a plastic ducting that helps keep the cabling down and allows the airflow through. I've got another one along here, you can see. That's just to allow the air from when it hits the bottom of the heat shield to go out. As you can see, I've colour coded the steppers, RGB, XYZ, and I have white down here for the extruder. Also, I fitted the slide out rail for the LCD, and when the printer is going, I'll just make up a housing to hold the assembly, the LCD assembly, and then it will just slide out on that and back in. So the LCD is all connected. I have cut some nylon standoffs. That's given me the height which I need to do. That's the original template I showed you for the front, and I just use that to check when the two PCBs are squashed together how far out they are, and 2 holes is fine. One's probably 1/2 mil out, so when I do the design I can make for those allowances. So again, another great use for laser cut templates. It is a very tight fit. There's only about 3 mil clearance to that coach bolt. Also on the corners, on the outside, I just plan to make up a little PLA extension, but it will have grooves in it, a bit like a pistol grip with your fingers, and that's so as the cable, the power cable and the USB cable will just wrap around the whole lower end. So it's stored away. I've got cable storage, neat, and as you may notice, there's only one. This is extremely neat and tidy built, and you'll notice that there's only one cabling coming out from the side of the whole printer. You cannot see any other cabling. If you got this far, you would have had your blood, sweat, tears, frustrations, and you would have noticed that in the pictures for the limit switches, they are shown start at the beginning of the pins. But as this picture will show that our friends at Syntron have sent me, they actually start the second row of pins along, and it goes X, Y, Z, and between the Z and the Y is where you fit your probe. So space X, space Y, probe Z, Z, probe, Y, X. You'll notice that it's all colour coded on the end here. I've also cable coded the connectors, so as there's a yellow, red and black on the extensions, so the signal always goes through. And the reason you can pick that up is that when you do the calibration after you've assembled it and you start going through the manual, you'll see it says to do a test, an M119, and it tells you that they're open and they're closed, or they're not open and they're not closed, and it's because the actual original drawings are wrong. So when you do it right and it's fed up, it will stop. If you do it when it's not right, your whole assembly will smash in and out of the top of the frame, and you need to hit the kill button on the LCD. I'll just put on the heat shield, just feed the colour-coded cabling to it. I'll just fit the heat shield now. The connectors are there. I've used the holes that actually twist the cabling away this way, because this is the clearance area I've got. Fan blows that way. I have added a length to allow a kink in this cable, the mister cable, and so now it's just a matter of making sure as I close it, S curves down, and I've marked the frame with some red dots, you can see, and they just help line up the position of the screws. So that's in. I like to just keep rattling it in. And I put a nut on this side, so that will help level out the bed square to the table. If you push it down, it seems to grab, it means the couple of screws are on the angle. So just loosen them off again, push it down again. There it is. If you want to keep the aluminium down, the heat shield down, yeah, you can put a little spring in there in the corners, but that's it. You can push the little tabs where the screws are. It's got a cutout, so it's got clearance there, and I can just push that little lip under, and that will lock it in position. It's another Back to the Future moment. I had set the probe up, as you will have seen in the probing videos, and it was going beautiful, dancing around. But then when I was printing and I'll do a probe test, it would dance, and then a couple of spots it wouldn't touch, and in the end it would probe, and then not touch, and then probe up in the air up here. There can be two problems. It can be a software glitch or could be a hardware. Now, as we know, it's mainly hardware. So even though I was testing the clicking before I would lower it and check it, what was happening was that it wasn't releasing. So it would go down and wouldn't come back up. The reason for it, I tracked it down, is actually in the micro switch. This is the original one. I tell you to cut off the tang and make it shorter and all that sort of stuff. As far as I'm concerned, that's wrong, and I'll explain why. I tell you to put it in that way, and you have to cut it to clear the spring and all that. And I've placed a larger screw, as you've already seen in the video, so a bigger head to keep it flat. Trouble was, it doesn't push this side of the little trigger there, pushes on this side. So sometimes I think this little lever may get a bit jammed, or for some reason it doesn't release. And even though I had the spring here compressed as much as what it could when it was in the fully upright position, it wouldn't release. So I said, right, and even though I've added packers to it, as I've mentioned, still wouldn't do it. So I said, right, giving it a flick, and I tried with the end stop, and that can fit in on the angle, but when I go to redesign and print the new effector, I'll make all these changes. I got one of this type. It's got a roller on it because that's the top I've used for somewhere else. But they're all a standard set. You can get about 10 for a couple of bucks, maybe $5, even less. So I said, right, I'll start again, but I'll make some changes. So this time I swung it around the other way. As you can see, I didn't have to trim anything off. You still have to flatten the little tangs down, but this time, instead of trying to solder wires on there that were getting a bit frayed and all that, I decided just to put a 4-row. Like I've said before, you can buy them or get them old computers, and 4 pins. You only need 2 pins, but what I've done is I soldered 2 pins in first with my solder, as you can see in this photo, the jig for holding everything, and I soldered them in. Then I bent it over and soldered the bent lug down to the second pin. Now the reason for that is I can now run a LED that will trigger when it's on and off, so I have a visual indication of it actually triggering. All I had to do was bend the pins, solder the pins in, and make up a packer. The reason why I've made up a packer is I've got the large head and to clear the spring side. Just a similar one to this. I had some 1/8 Perspex 3mm. I just laser cut it, and there's a little spacer in there, and that just pushes it out. Now it goes down, and the actual spring tension of the actual lever pushes itself up. So you're actually bending that stainless steel lever, and that's causing it to flick up by itself. So now I've got 100% reliability. So before you start cutting your applied one up, put it in that direction. That's your common, open, solder that through, make up your plug, fits on there. If you've got 90-degree pins, that will mean that can fit in there and not stick out so far. So that will fit on there. If I want to put LED on there, I've got provision. I just have to put wires on and have it sitting up there, but I'll do that when I redesign it. So that's a gotcha, and that will save the trouble people have, and if you do it, you shouldn't have any problems. Again, thanks for watching, and I hope I'm helping you on the journey on your foray into the Syntron printer.